Hi there. Hope you guys are doing okay. What are we in week 2 of quarantine now? Um, I was actually, before we get into the class, just thinking about and talking to my neighbor the other night about how historic this time really is. And you might be rolling your eyes right now, like, yeah, sure, you sound like my parents. But I can't think of anything else in our lifetimes or in recent history that we know of that affected so many things in the world. Um, and I mean, it's affecting how everybody's learning to use technology more, and people are learning to work at home and do more with less. And it's just crazy. It's just still all blowing my mind. So anyway, so what I was going to show you today, I would be doing if we were in class this week, is give you just kind of some do's and don'ts on presentations. Not really the speaking part, because we talked about that last week, but more for your slides, for your PowerPoints. And just presentations in general, because that's something you'll probably wind up doing at some point, even beyond this class. So what I want you to take away from this is how to do a really nice, professional looking presentation. Um, Whether you ever use it again, who knows? You may not. So also, side note, it's looking like you're probably, I think I mentioned this last week, you're not going to be required to videotape a presentation more than likely, but when I redo the assignment in the next week or so, I will have it include your PowerPoint slides. So I'll have you upload those because I want to see what you were planning on presenting and what you would be presenting if you were able. So with that said, I am going to share my screen. I hope you appreciate how fancy this video is going to be. I have taught myself in the last few days how to record a presentation without using my iPhone and holding it by hand. Yeah, that was a little rough, but I didn't know what else to do at the time. But I'm actually recording on Zoom and then able to share my screen using my slides. So if you ever want to know how to do something like that, it's pretty darn easy. So lots of reasons you want to use visual aids. I don't think I shared my screen yet. Hold on. Bear with me. Here we go. Um, the best thing I like about using visual aids is it can be good for the nerves and for your anxiety as a speaker because it takes the eyes off you and puts them on the screen on this guy. So it makes it a little bit easier and less nerve-wracking to give a presentation. A lot of other good reasons why speaking and using a visual aid helps a lot of different things. It can definitely add clarity to the presentation. Obviously, if I were giving a speech on anatomy and I showed this little guy over here in the corner and I was talking about the heart valves and the lungs, you could see what I was talking about instead of trying to imagine it. It keeps it more interesting, you know, and I am a strong believer in anytime you can give somebody more appeal to more senses, whether it's, you know, hearing, sight, feeling, smelling, all those things, the more interesting it is. And the more you're going to remember too, because you will remember things visually a lot more than you will just sonically. So that's the other reason to use slides. Gives you some credibility. It makes you look like you know what you're doing, what you're talking about, and definitely can help with persuasiveness too. One picture, it is really true, can make 1,000 words. I've seen a presentation where they were talking about, you know, the reasons to not text and drive, or the texting and driving statistics in Missouri. And you know what? All they have to do is show a car that's completely totaled, and and say, you know what, this person was texting and they didn't make it out of this accident, you're going to remember that. It's going to have a lot more impact than if I just gave you a bunch of statistics. So yeah, very, very persuasive depending on the pictures that you use. So we're getting ready to have a thunderstorm outside, so I don't know if you can hear the thunder, and hopefully I'm not going to lose power or anything here. Different kinds of visual aids. I mean, for this class, obviously, you're probably going to be using a PowerPoint. You obviously can use an object. You can use a photo. You can use graphs. You can use charts. You can use a video in your presentation. The speaker is actually a visual aid. You, the speaker, are part of it too. And then presentation technology, which is your Google Slides, your PowerPoints, and all those kinds of things. So if you are going to show a picture of something for impact, you know, maybe you are doing your presentation, in this case, on how did the coronavirus affect business in your town or here in Springfield. You might show a picture of an empty restaurant, which is kind of depressing, but you don't want to have a little bitty picture. You don't want to pass around a picture, because why? Everybody's going to be distracted and looking at the pictures. So you want to make it look good. You want good quality, clear, not blurry, not fuzzy, anything like that. So just some things to watch out for. Sometimes drawings can be very impactful. So if you read this one, you can see it makes a pretty strong statement, right? So a lot of times, you know, you can say something with a drawing or writing as well. Graphs, I'm a big fan of using graphs and pie charts and those kinds of things, because, you know, when somebody starts spouting out statistics, it's hard to retain any of that. You're just hearing numbers and your eyes kind of glaze over. But if you're looking at an actual chart, again, it's visual, it's going to help you remember, it's going to have more impact. So obviously, coronavirus is probably going to be a lot of you all's topics for your presentation. So, you know, maybe if you were to give a presentation on, you know, how has it affected local businesses, once again, you know, maybe you can show how many people were going out to eat in Springfield on an average night, and then just kind of a bar graph down where that is now. It'd be pretty line graph. You can use one or more lines to show things going down, things going up, that kind of thing. Here's an example of a line graph. So this would be kind of interesting to do now, actually, with all that we have going on. You can see in the last 10 years, grocery spending has gone down, restaurant spending has gone up. And you see a visual of that, so it makes it a lot easier to grasp and to retain too. Pie graphs, I love pie graphs. Pie graphs are super easy ways to show compare and contrast of different things as well. So example, women in the workforce, this is a couple years out of date, but if you look back at 1900, wow, only 14% of married women were working. Yeah, they were all June cleavers staying home, but now 50% of married women are in the workforce. I would venture to say now in 2020, that's probably even higher too, but just makes it make a lot more sense, a lot easier to retain, again, when you use a pie graph. I am not the most experienced at putting together graphs and pie charts and bar and line graphs in PowerPoint and Google Slides, but I know all of those have that capability. And if that's something that you can learn how to do and teach yourself how to do, which I'm sure you can, boy, oh boy, are you going to be impressive the first time you give a presentation. Bar graph shows comparisons between different things. It's color coded, makes it super easy. A kindergartner could look at this and go, oh, look, there's more purple than blue and red. So yeah, just a super easy way to make it look really clean, really good. And doing something like this really does give you credibility. It raises the credibility bar and makes it look like, wow, you took the time to put these stats in this bar graph. You must really know what you're talking about, right? Charts, again, something else you can do, helps people visualize, makes it clear, keeps things really simple. an example of a chart. I'm not a super big fan of just doing this because it's still kind of gray, just a lot of stats. But if you did a bar graph or a pie graph with this, I think it would look awesome. So using a video in a presentation, perfectly fine. You just don't want to take up the whole presentation. I'm always a fan of using a video clip for a strong open, maybe to your presentation, or a video to cap it off at the end with a strong ending. Again, want to make sure it's good quality, make sure it's queued up. That's another good thing you can use slides for. You can link right to a video clip and it makes it super easy peasy. If you ever do something like this though, just take it from experience, from myself. I've seen other students go this route and then they go to click on the video and, oh, there's no sound, or, oh, the link doesn't work. So you always want to test something like that out before you give the presentation too. So yeah, using slides, you can combine your audio, combine your visual, you can make them fancy, make things blow in, make things blow out. I think for business purposes, making them super fancy with all those crazy transitions is kind of distracting more than anything. So just keeping it simple, easy peasy is always better. So some things to think about. Use it strategically. Don't just make slides to be making slides. Use it to enhance your main points. You don't want to write out your entire presentation on the slides because then everybody's just going to be reading it. You don't need to overpower it, and you definitely do not want to read from the screen. So some other things to keep in mind, obviously, prepare in advance, like we talked about last week. When you're doing a slide presentation, you need to practice. You need to know what's coming up. You need to know what you're going to be talking about. You want to keep it simple. You don't want it cluttered, or else you're going to lose people. They're not going to know what to retain. They're not going to know what to look at. You want to make it big enough to see, but not too much text. I've always been taught not more than like 3 lines on a slide with just a handful of words to each line. You want to use consistent fonts, easy to read fonts, big color contrast, so black against white, white against black, maybe white against blue, but don't go yellow on orange, or even sometimes your lighter colors are really hard to see. So you just want to make sure you have a really, really good contrast. This is an example of a perfect slide. It's got a great heading. You know what they're talking about. It's got an eye-pleasing picture that your eyes naturally go to. You've got 3 very bold bullet points. Boom, boom, boom. And you look at it. It's kind of like, I know you guys see billboards, obviously, when you're driving down the road. And I've been in charge of designing billboards many times for radio stations I worked at. And I had a boss, when he was teaching me how to do it, at one point, he said, basically, your eyes need to be able to read what's in the billboard in about 1.5 seconds. Because if you're going down the freeway, you're going to need to catch what they're saying. It's kind of the same thing with a slide. You want to be able to read it and take it in just a couple of seconds. You always want to use clear fonts, your big main ones. You don't want to use more than all different fonts all over your presentation. Make sure everything's consistently sized, all that thing. Some good fonts and bad fonts. Obviously, it's more fun to use, you know, the wingdings and the cracked and the schoolhouse and all that stuff. But if you're trying to get a point across, you want to use your normal fonts. Arial is probably my favorite. New Times Roman, Times New Roman after that, but you know, keep them simple. Obviously, like I said, high contrast, easy to see, limited number. Don't feel like you need to fill up the whole slide. If you don't have a picture, you know what? Use a bigger font. Just have 3 main points. You don't ever want to have paragraphs on your slides. If you've got an image on there, make sure it's big, make sure it's high res, good quality, easy to see, and include a title. It always makes it look a little bit more buttoned up. So Visual aid, other things to keep in mind, obviously, make sure people can see it. You don't want to pass things around while you're speaking. Um, you want to have it on display only when you're talking about something. You want to talk to the audience, not look at the slide. You definitely want to practice, because the worst thing that can happen is, obviously, a lot of times when you're doing something like this, you get nervous, you might forget to change the slides. And then if you haven't practiced very much, you're going to forget where you're supposed to be and lose your place. And once again, you always want to check the room, check the equipment beforehand, and make sure everything's working so you're not embarrassed. Okay, pretty easy, but if you've never used slides in a presentation, this is probably good stuff for you. If you have, I'm sure it was a good review. So I will be including slides in your individual presentation assignment. So I will be getting that posted in the next week or so. I'm assuming I'm going to give you a couple of weeks to take care of it. So you'll have plenty of notice to work on that and to work on your reports. And I hope you're doing well. Have a great week. And once again, if you need anything or have any questions about anything, just email me, text me, and I'll try to be checking my email at least once a day. And thank you so much. Stay safe, and I will talk to you soon.